anybody see me? Can anybody help?
We're here today. Ayesha died a year ago. This beautiful horse who was dragged to get her up when she couldn't move. And a year later, they had the autopsy results, and it was from neglect. And this just can't go on anymore. New York City has to do better. It's too much. It's too much for the horses every single day. And this was just one of the worst examples of what happened. But every day they undergo, standing here among the noise, the people, it's just not acceptable. This is not the way horses were meant to be. They should be in a pasture, in a sanctuary, and they know they have homes for them. If they would only stop this, if the city council would only ban the carriage horses in New York City. It's way past time, it's archaic, and it does not belong here.
Isn't it unbelievable that we're still here protesting this? I mean, this should have been ended decades ago, and here we still are. Horses do not belong on city streets. That's just basic common sense. This is something from another era, and it doesn't have any place in today's New York City. It's accident after accident, and the daily abuse of these poor creatures.
Horse abuse. Ban horse carriages. There's no excuse for horse abuse. Ban horse carriages. There's no excuse for horse abuse. Ban horse carriages. There's no excuse for horse abuse. Ban horse carriages. There's no excuse for horse abuse. Ban horse carriages. There's no excuse for horse abuse. Ban horse carriages.
We are here today calling on the City Council to end this horse abuse. 1 year ago today, 10-year-old carriage horse Ayesha suffered an agonizing collapse and was killed by a undiagnosed, untested disease that is common in draft horses. The Department of Health, the carriage drivers do not test these horses for serious, life-threatening diseases. That's why Ayesha is dead. How many horses standing here right now are sick, diseased, and suffering, and being forced to pull carriages in agony until they either drop dead, crash into cars, or die? This is animal abuse. We are calling on the City Council to shut down this abuse. This is the 1-year anniversary of Ayesha's needless death, and she is just one victim. We have veterinarians stating that she should not have ever been pulling a carriage. How dare New York City officials allow these horses to pull carriages, to get subpar abusive treatment, to not be tested for lameness, arthritis, COPD, PSSM. They're not testing them, they're not treating them for any of these diseases because they don't care. I'm going to read a statement from New York veterinarian Dr. Eileen Jefferson related to the autopsy results that we obtained recently. And by the way, the carriage industry lied for nearly a year, saying that Ayesha died of a heart attack, which is an outright lie. She died of an untreated disease that they never test these horses for. That is animal abuse. Working sick, diseased horses until they drop dead. This is New York City. This is 2021. We will not stand for this anymore. Dr. Eileen Jefferson says, post-mortem biopsy results obtained recently confirmed Ayesha's collapse was indeed neuromuscular and attributable to polysaccharide storage myopathy, or quote, tying up. Not only is PSSM extremely common in draft horses, with 39 of the horses in Ayesha's prominent breed affected, but the typical draft horse variant is diagnosable through a one-time genetic test. The potentially devastating effects of PSSM are then preventable in nearly all cases through changes in dietary and exercise management. PSSM can exist without symptoms for extended periods in some cases. However, due to the disease's prevalence, most equine caregivers pursue the simple and inexpensive genetic screen in a horse's pre-purchase exam. Others suspect PSSM from clinical signs or findings on routine blood panels, the kind Ayesha only appears to have had performed at the time of her death. Despite such a high prevalence of this disease in draft horses, there has been no indication that the New York City carriage industry utilizes any of the available diagnostic screens to prevent the excruciating and debilitating effects of PSSM. And Dr. Jefferson goes on to say, answering the question of why are these horses not given this test for this excruciating, potentially deadly disease when it exists and it's common in these horses? Dr. Jefferson says, for that to happen, one would need to prioritize the animals themselves, something often outside the interests of animal exploiting industries. Just as puppy mill breeding dogs are not afforded the care and veterinary attention typical of in-home dog companions, industry horses are typically regarded more as commodities than sentient animals with individual physical and behavioral needs. The unfortunate and undeniable reality is that the diets, stalls, lack of access to pasture turnout, and inconsistent exercise levels, characteristics of the New York City horse industry, are maximally conducive to PSSM, the disease that killed Ayesha. They also predispose to an array of other serious and life-threatening equine ailments: chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, lameness, arthritis, and colic among them. Sadly, but unsurprisingly, 2 other New York City horse carriages were euthanized due to colic just weeks before Ayesha was killed. Again, we ask, how can the New York City Council, how can the Department of Health, how can the mayor allow sick, diseased, suffering horses to be worked every single day? How many of these horses have an undiagnosed disease or illness that is causing them agony because they are not even tested for these things? This is unimaginable animal abuse that is sanctioned by the city, and we are not going to stand any longer for the New York City Council taking no action and allowing sick, diseased, suffering horses to be worked to death. Ayesha suffered, died in pain.
Carriage drivers are to blame.
Ayesha suffered, died in pain.
Carriage drivers are to blame.
Ayesha suffered, died in pain.
Carriage drivers are to blame.
Ayesha suffered, died in pain.
Carriage drivers are to blame.
Revolting, vile animal abuse, and it's happening right now. These carriage drivers are knowingly abusing these horses, knowingly working sick, suffering, diseased horses until they literally drop dead. There's no excuse for horse abuse. Ban horse carriages. The veterinarians who read the autopsy report could not believe that anyone who claims to care about their horses would let a sick, diseased horse to be untested and untreated. None of these horses are tested for PSSM, which is common in their breeds. They're not tested for lameness. They're not tested for any number of life-threatening serious illnesses. And right now, sick, suffering horses are being worked on our city streets. Cities around the world are banning this animal abuse because it's the 21st century. Chicago, Montreal, Toronto, London, Barcelona, Salt Lake City, Guadalajara, Mexico, Shanghai, Mumbai, India. What other cities? I can't even remember them all. New York City remains in the dark ages. We literally are abusing horses every day. forcing sick, diseased horses to pull carriages through traffic and calling that tourism. I know as a native New Yorker, New York City is better than this. I don't want to wake up another day seeing this animal abuse on my city streets. We're calling on the City Council, Speaker Corey Johnson, Mayor de Blasio, finally do the right thing, as almost every other city has done in banning this animal abuse. We do not want Ayesha's death to be in vain. So many horses have suffered and died. Hundreds, thousands of them. Now is the time to end this. Ayesha suffered, died in pain.
Carriage drivers are to blame.
I don't ever want to hear more nonsense from any carriage drivers or their representatives that they care about these horses. You do not care about an animal if you don't even test them, because we have so much proof that they are abusing them. No one who cares about an animal would chain them up for 10 plus hours a day, knowing that they are sick, diseased, suffering, in pain, waiting for them to either drop dead in their stall or on the streets. This is animal abuse, and it has no place in New York City. The only acceptable solution is to do what so many other cities have already done and end this abuse. New York City Council, Mayor de Blasio, you have the power to do this tomorrow if you want to. We represent this is a small number of the so many people who want this done already, who for decades have been documenting the abuse and cruelty of these horses, and so little has been done to help them. There's no excuse for horse abuse!
Ban horse carriages! Ban horse carriages!
She was given a clean bill of health by the Department of Health. Why? Because they are not testing these horses for any of the diseases and ailments that they're predisposed for. This is an indictment of our own city agencies that are supposed to regulate these animal abusers and are failing miserably. Ayesha's death is on their hands, and it's on the hands of these animal abusers. We don't want our tax dollars to keep funding animal abuse. The city agencies are failing at the job and have been.
I'm Ashley Byrne with PETA, and PETA is joining NYCLAS and compassionate New Yorkers in calling for a ban on the horse carriage industry in New York City. This autopsy proves once again that carriage drivers will work ailing, sick horses until they literally collapse and die. How many more horses are going to have to die completely unnecessary, preventable, painful deaths before we finally get them off of our city streets? This is an industry that no one needs, and these horses are denied everything that is natural to them so that they can be worked and then locked up without any of the things that a horse needs to be content and healthy. No amount of regulation will stop these drivers from working horses until they collapse and die. And so it's time for the city to ban these carriages once and for all. Thank you.
I am fighting to get the carriage horses in New York City banned, as I've been doing with all these people for many years, because they are not being taken care of properly, and just having these horses pull heavy carriages in all kinds of weather on the streets of New York City is in itself is animal abuse, and I'm very against any kind of animal abuse. And I'd like to ask Mayor de Blasio to finally, he can sign all kind of executive orders to shut down businesses and put people out of work. So he can sign an executive order to ban these carriage horses once and for all. And I don't know why he hasn't done it yet. So, please, Mayor de Blasio, the health department, please ban these carriage horses.
Do I have permission to use this?
Yes.
I would love to know
why the city council and the relevant committees believe every word that these carriage drivers say. Everything they say is self-serving, and we have proof now, the autopsy exposed, that everything they say is self-serving and not truthful.
I'm here today. It's the 1-year anniversary of Ayesha's death. We are here to protest once again the horse carriage industry for their neglect and abuse of these horses. Ayesha did not have to die. The autopsy shows that she was neglected by these people who claim to care about their horses, which we know they absolutely do not. I've been protesting the horse carriages for going on a decade now, so it's been a long fight, and it's hard to believe that we're still here, especially after all the promises of Bill de Blasio. But hopefully with a new council and a new mayor in 2021, we will finally be able to get rid of this industry. But today we're here to mourn Ayesha, to protest this industry for allowing her to die and it all going unchecked.
Drive's gonna start. Which way should we go? And this way. Everybody, get behind the drive, move in, take it. Yeah, pretty big though. It has to be pretty big.
I'll just do a brief intro. So what I'm going to do, everyone, is I'll do a brief intro.
Move it. Okay.
I believe we need to make better choices. We are all connected. This is family. This is our family as well. Horses in the city is our responsibility, and we shouldn't be negligent to something that is happening with very, very superficial excuses as tourism. That's not an excuse. No excuse for pain, no excuse for hurt.
Sorry, I'm just emotional just to have to see the horses. Every time I see them, triggered, and I'm emotional, and I'm shocked that this is happening today in 2021. One of the biggest cities in the world, one of the most progressive cities in the world. Why is this still happening? It needs to stop. And we are far, far behind. I'm just keeping these horses in my thoughts.
I'm here to support the ending of this abusive industry. I'm here for the horses. Simple as that.
It's been a year that Ayesha collapsed right at this spot. We didn't know why, we didn't know what had happened, why she had to be euthanized. We couldn't get any information. And unfortunately, our own Department of Health refused to give us any documents for nearly a year. So finally, recently we got them, and we discovered that she died of a disease called polysaccharide myopathy, PSSM, which most of us have never heard of, but it's actually common, pretty common in the breed of horse that Ayesha is. So knowing that, neither the Department of Health or the people who buy these horses, the carriage drivers, don't test them for this disease that they know they're predisposed to. And the autopsy showed that. They don't test them for lameness, any of these other things. So this is not news to any of us, but we hope that putting this out there will shock the general public, will maybe wake up our city council to really take this seriously. So maybe if we want to just have like 30, 60 seconds in Ayesha's memory, and also put out the intention that we don't want any more horses to suffer and die in vain like Ayesha did, and we're going to get this ban done. So let's have a moment of silence.
Come on. Yay, Kirsten, come on, Kirsten, please.
Well,
it's our 1-year anniversary.
While you think about it, I can ask you questions.
Oh my gosh, Rachel's gonna hurt me if I don't.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that was very quick.
It's fine, it's fine.
What, Donnie has a question.
A few questions. First of all,
Rachel's gonna beat me up.
what I would like to see that. Go live. What media outlets were there today, and when do you have any idea when they'll air? And also, what did Corey Johnson and Mayor de Blasio say when Ayesha?
Yes.
Okay.
So definitely News 12 and Fox was there. I'm not sure if it was anyone else. Did anyone else notice?
Fox 5?
Fox 5 and News 12. So those were the two.
Any idea what time?
They're supposed to email me,
Okay.
so I can. It's usually like around 5 or 6, but then it could be sometimes 10. They have like different broadcasts, so I don't know. But I'll like post in the event page when I know. But Corey Johnson, Mayor de Blasio, it was actually the biggest, most hopeful response when she died that we'd ever gotten. Like they were tweeting, like de Blasio was like, this, something needs to be done. This is like, they were appalled, they were shocked because the footage was so horrifying. And then COVID happened, and then, everything just sort of
Nothing else mattered.
flatlined. But, once we got the information, it was killing me not knowing, not being able to even know what had killed her, just waiting and waiting for the Department of Health to send this. So we just think it's just another kind of smoking gun to use. Not that we even should need any,
Right.
because we have so much on our side to ban this, but every bit of evidence helps. But really, I don't think we've driven home the point enough. And if you're all, hopefully we'll contact your council members again, even if you've done it before, with the point that we know that sick, suffering, diseased horses literally are being worked every day. I'd be surprised if a single horse out here did not have some ailment, some painful or potentially life-threatening ailment. I would be shocked.
Can I ask you a question? Could this test have been prevented?
It wouldn't have prevented it because it was genetic.
They find out that it's genetic.
We have Dr. Holly Cheever and Dr. Eileen Jefferson both have consulted us on this, and I read Dr. Jefferson's statements, but this is a simple genetic test that any good horse person would do. Should it be at the point of sale, you're testing these horses for this PSSM, and it's actually very rare that it's fatal because it's easily treated.
But if it goes
Giant.
untreated, then
Yeah,
this
so,
is what happens.
so
Like what happened
she
to Ayesha.
probably already had it. They buy her, they don't test for anything. It's untreated. So and Dr. Cheever, who has 40 years of experience with horses and used to inspect the horses, said that she is certain that Ayesha displayed some other signs of her agony. But of course, they're just ignored because so many of these horses suffer, and these carriage drivers, most of them don't care or even know what to look for. So for an entire year, she was suffering until she public collapsed. Maybe she collapsed before that, and we didn't get it on video. So, but also lameness in the legs. Laminitis, which is the horse Night Class rescued Chance, had a horrible case of laminitis, which is when the wall of the hoof separates. Imagine having to walk on that. Colic, all of these ailments and diseases that can either kill or, make these horses suffer agony. Our own city is not testing for these. Literally, their exams are the vet goes into the tiny stall, looks at the horse, and that's pretty much it. Bare minimum blood work. They didn't do blood work to test for that PSSM disease. So the whole thing is just from beginning to end, these horses are set up to just suffer and die. We have proof of that.
The
So
commodities.
they're totally treated like machines. Yes, 100%.
Isn't it surprising that more vets haven't spoken out?
I mean, you would think so, but when you really, the thing is, it's very difficult to get vets to go on record. It's very difficult to get vets on record because they get a backlash.
Right.
Any equine vets, they usually will work for industries like horse racing industry or whatever, and they tend to be very conservative and not wanted to align with animal rights things because they suffer the price because there's a backlash for the vet industry in general for doing that. But we do have a number of really great vets that aren't afraid and have the guts to do that. Should we put the flowers down?
I'm in here. Can anybody see me? Can anybody help? I'm in here, a prisoner of history. Can anybody help? Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to hold all of the sadness I cannot live with inside of me. I'm in here, I'm trying to tell you something. Can anybody help? I'm in here, crying out that you can't hear from anybody else. Can't you hear my call? Are you coming to get me now? I've been waiting for you to come rescue me. I need you to
I'm just wondering if it would be a fair
hold on with the
compromise
sadness.
if the horses
I
could stay in the
cannot
park. If they stay on dirt
live
soil,
inside
cannot
of
be on
me.
pavement like this or gravel or a sidewalk. And then truck to and from, you know.